This podcast
is so criminal. Hello.
And welcome to So Criminal,
where we talk about things that aren't just criminal, they're
so criminal.
They are. I'm Joe.
And I'm Avery.
And we're really excited to start a podcast. It's been a long time in the making, and we're excited to finally be recording our first episode.
Yes, I know. We've been talking about doing this for a long time, and just so happy to be here. And I know everybody says that, so we won't waste your time. Let's get this
we're
shit started.
all about we are all about wasting time, but like just for this one time, we'll let you have a pass.
Yeah. Okay. So this podcast, though, real quick, we, like to drink wine and talk about crime. So
yes.
Here we are. And this week we are both going to be telling our own story. And Joe, are you going first?
Yeah, I can go first. I'm down with that.
All right. I'm eager.
All right. And I think that before I start my story, we should do a little bit of a virtual toast. So, Avery, do you have your wine?
I do have my wine. Of course, it's in my hand.
All right. Okay. I haven't poured mine yet. So I'm going to do that. We're going to hear a little ASMR. It's a very full glass. Yes. And I have another glass over here, so I'm going to cheers it. Yeah, the first one we'll work on it. We'll work on it. We'll work on it. And I think that also I wanted to mention that we're kind of doing, the reason we kind of picked the name So Criminal is because we both kind of love like pop culture and especially like nostalgic like 90s, early 2000s stuff. And so lots of like if.
I love Cher.
Yeah.
Cher from Clueless is literally kind of the inspo behind our criminal mentality. So
yes, and there definitely will be more and more kind of references to different things, whether it's on our social medias or like any type of graphic design that I do for the podcast. I'm definitely going to incorporate some yellow plaid, some Pink on Wednesdays, all the things that we love. And I own both of those movies and have watched them at least 20 times. So maybe some Legally Blonde action too, but more Legally Brunette for us.
All right. So let's cut to the chase.
Okay, fine.
What are you doing this week?
I am doing a really exciting story. One that speaking of movies, it was made kind of into and inspired by kind of based on reality type of movie. And I had heard about this story before I saw the movie, and I didn't quite put it together. And then when I was looking up the movie after I had watched it, I was like, oh my gosh, holy shit, I remember this now, and I need to go do a deep dive. So I'm excited. So let's do it.
As you do.
Yes. So I'm going to be covering the fascinating story of one of my favorite criminal scandals. Not sandals, but scandals.
We love a good scandal.
Yeah, we love a good sandal too, but not if you're wearing socks. So, yeah, honestly, don't do that. If you are doing that right now, just take it off for us. Unless you're driving.
First of all, it's February, so please just don't do that at all. But please don't do that in the winter.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it is summer in like the Southern Hemisphere. So if you're down in Australia, let's not do that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. All right. This is the story of Rosie, and she kind of went by, or her name was Roselyn, and she went by Rosie Keogh, and Samantha Barbash. So before I get into kind of the drama and the scandal and the crime, a lot of crime going on in this one, let's do a little bit of background on these two kind of key players in this situation. And I'm going to start with Rosie, which I think is such a cute name.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm going to use their first names just for clarity. And kind of that was when I tell you kind of what work they did, they usually use first names. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And,
so gamblers?
I mean, I'm sure there's it's honestly kind of, you'll see what I mean. Kind of. Okay. They definitely gambled on a lot of things, but not with poker chips. So in an article with Jessica Pressler for New York Magazine, and this was kind of the expose article that kind of brought this to the public attention, and it's actually what the mystery movie that I'll reveal later is based on. So Rosie paints a picture of her childhood and, quote, "My parents were Cambodian refugees who came to America hoping for a better life and got caught up with the, material crap and the nice cars and the nightlife. And just somewhere they went wrong."
Is this the bling ring?
It is lots of bling. It is a ring, but it is not the bling ring. Which okay. I want you to cover that at some point because I love that story.
I do too. Okay. All right.
So, and this is kind of a foreshadowing a little bit. We'll see if history repeats itself. So Pressler, the author, also noted that, quote, "Rosie is an admitted liar with multiple pending felony charges. So let's keep that in mind as we go through this story." So she could be
great.
She could be exaggerating in everything I have written because she was the main kind of like information source for this article. And I definitely pulled in other articles, but they all kind of regurgitated what was already said in the original one. So it could be all a lie.
All right.
Regardless of exactly what happened in her childhood, Rosie ended up moving in with her grandmother outside of New York City, and she dropped out of school at 17, and she took up a job as a waitress at a diner. So since she would pick up these extra hours late night, she's always hustling, in her words. There were many customers that would trickle in from a nearby gentleman's club. And one night, which makes sense, after I go to the club, pre-COVID, I'd want to go to Whataburger or whatever. So
right, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, is it a successful night out if you're not, having a nightcap at the best food establishment?
Oh, absolutely. No, the best was when like all of the drag queens would go to like a Whataburger and like dine in, and so there'd be like one like couple that like probably had a Trump flag on their car, and then like 30 drag queens and like 10 gay guys in there, and it was just, I loved it, every moment of it. So anyway,
you'll have to take me next time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you didn't.
So back
every
to
time
our girl Rosie.
Yeah, I mean, every time I take you to the gay strip, something goes wrong. So hopefully, third time's the charm.
Yeah. Okay. Let's hear about our girl Rosie.
Okay, moving back. Sorry, I love myself a lot. Okay. So one night, she was offered a job by one of the club's managers, and thus her career as a dancer was born. A star was born.
Off with your head.
Exactly.
Dance till you're dead.
Oh, I thought you were going to sing something from A Star is Born, but that works too. All right. So it wasn't just a dancing job to her, because she, besides being stunningly beautiful, she is incredibly smart. Like, seriously, like watching interviews with this woman, she's articulate and she has a mission in mind, and she's great at reading people, which helps a lot when you're a dancer. You kind of know exactly how to get the most amount of money from a customer. And she, on top of that, is very organized, meticulous, and business minded. So
okay, wait, hold up. So I just looked at the picture that you sent me of her, which, by the way, we are posting on our Instagram.
She's the first one.
And y'all can look at. Well, no, duh. I mean, I was looking at the pictures you sent me, and you're like, yeah, she's like beautiful, sharp businesswoman, and it's the one who's like posed with her arms crossed, with her hair done, looking good.
Yeah, like and if you look in the background, like it literally is the street sign says Wall Street on it. Like she was getting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we live for her.
She looks good.
We live for her so far.
Love her.
Might change. So, in fact, she'd always been very business savvy, and she even like would sell bulk candy on the playground and like charge a profit for it. So she'd get like a bunch of candy and then charge the kids more, which...
Oh my god, I'm totally imagining that one punk on the playground who has like that trench coat and they like open up one
and
of
it's
the
like
corners
sticks
and they're
of
like,
gum or something.
Hey, yeah, look at all of this like melted chocolate that I'm gonna overcharge you for. Like,
yeah, I found it in the bottom of my mom's
maybe some
trunk.
pencil grips and erasers.
Oh my god, erasers. There was like a serious gum ring in middle school, I remember.
Well, yeah, because it was like illegal to have gum.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like almost like a drug ring at that point.
But it was literally, people had like trench coats and they had like
different flavors.
Yeah, like in there, like they'd open up the coat and have like the different flavors, which now looking back is kind of gross. So anyway, moving on. So she knew that she could make way more money as a dancer in New York City instead of kind of like outside the city at a smaller, you know, gentleman's club, because obviously, yeah,
the Big Apple,
exactly. And there was, and this was early 2000s, so like stripping was cool, dancing was cool, and well, no, it was. They had reality TV shows. Like when I researched this, I watched one of the episodes, and Rosie even said that she grew up like that was one of the things she watched, and so she was determined, and she was like, I'm gonna go where all the high rollers are, all these big, you know, Wall Street bros and that type of thing, because they tip big. Like, we'll get to it. We'll get to how big.
Because they have secrets and they're gonna tip you extra to hold, like, keep the secrets.
Well, that and like they just had so much fucking money.
Yeah.
So she moved to New York, and so one of the clubs, there's two main clubs that kind of are part of this story. One is called Hustler, which is the one that I'm about to talk about. And then the other one is Scores, which is like, I believe Scores is a chain, and it's kind of like the popular, like they have ones all across the country. At least they did at this time. I'm not sure about Hustler, but they're both kind of, they have very notorious clubs in New York City. So she got a job there, and this is where she met Samantha Barbash. And she is the last picture, Avery, in the order that I've sent them to you. It's one of my favorite pictures.
Oh my god.
Yes.
She's so funny.
Yeah, that was like, I guess, I'm pretty sure that's like when she, well, I'm not going to spoil the story. But yeah, you'll see why she was really happy in that picture.
Okay, yeah.
So let's talk about her. So Samantha is much more private than Rosie, because Rosie's like, Rosie will tell anyone about this whole thing. Samantha, not so much. And also there's not all that much information on her background. But kind of the basics I could find was she's from the Bronx. And at the time was a single mother. I'm not exactly sure, again, if she still is single. But she's very private. Definitely a mother. And she supported herself through dancing at clubs since she was 19. Which, that's like pretty, like, impressive. I've met several people that, you know, as far as the gay dancers, and they support themselves through that, and it's a hustle. Like, it's a hard work.
I mean, it sucks because it's like feast or famine. Like, you never know when it's going to be a good night, and like
exactly.
people are going to come through.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I want to choose my words carefully, but you definitely like run the risk of being in situations where awful people think that
there are risky people coming.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a risky job, and it's not their problem that it's a risky job. It is on entirely the fault of the creeps that make it a risky job. So,
right. Just
to be clear. All right, moving on. So she was a hustler too. And I'm including this quote from...
I mean, no shit.
Yeah.
Don't all, like, female, like, dancers at clubs,
yeah.
like, aren't they all hustlers? Like, there's a reason they're there and dancing.
Totally. And being good at reading people and being business-minded, just totally hustling. And, like, it's awesome. And you'll see why these really are hustlers later on. So I'm including this quote from Pressler's article because I literally could not have written it better, and it paints such a good picture of, like, Samantha. So her body was Jessica Rabbit curvy, her lips Angelina Jolie puffy, her hair, which concealed tattoos of a cascade of stars running down her back, was Cleopatra black.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
yes.
And if you see pictures of her, that's exactly it.
It totally is.
Yeah. So she was quite a bit older than Rosie. She was in her 30s versus Rosie, I believe, was maybe 20, somewhere around there. Very, like, young. So, and like many of the younger dancers at the club, Rosie kind of looked up to her as kind of like this mom figure in the club and Samantha would kind of take a lot of the younger dancers under her wing and kind of help them because a lot of times, like, when you're in your 30s getting up to 40, like, you really can't find money as a dancer, which is ageist, but
Right.
so that just proves how much of a hustler she was, because she was still relevant in the club scene.
Well, could she essentially be like the what's the word for it when you're like the female in charge,
Like the matriarch?
Kind of. I'm almost talking about Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
like when you're
like,
the
I mean, like, Ghislaine was basically a pimp. I don't think, she's not like that. It's not like, she's not like selling them out for sex or anything like that. It's more of like a drag mother thing where she like makes sure they're wearing like the right things and like, teaching them how it all works. Like
staying
how
away
like
from the extra creeps.
Yeah, and like how to make more money in the champagne room, which we'll fucking get to the champagne room.
All right, yes.
So she was like a mentor figure, and things were going really well for Rosie. She had this like someone to look up to, and she was making money. So she recalled about her time at the Hustler Club. We had a guy who is at Guggenheim Partners. He spent 300 grand in 1 week. He came in 3 times, 100 grand every time he walked in the room. Everyone made $10,000 every time he came in. That's what I'm talking about. Like, when I said a lot of money earlier, I mean like a lot of money. $10,000 is nothing to shake your nose at or your toes.
Oh my god.
Shake your legs though.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay.
And that's like a low figure for, we're like easing into the money. So get ready. The downside was that obviously most of these wealthy ass men were also assholes. So they would speak, very pejorative to the women, which is not a shocker. Men suck. As one, I am one, myself, I can attest. But in some ways, though, it was easier to justify like overcharging or screwing over an asshole. So they could at least make more money off of these assholes.
Right.
And they'd feel okay doing it. So there's that, at least, I guess.
I mean, a silver lining, I guess.
Yeah. So as we kind of enter into like 2006-ish, beginning of 2007, like the strip club business was starting to decline. It wasn't as hyped up in popular culture. And Rosie and her longtime boyfriend were like really going through it in their relationship because on top of that, like, money was tight. People, she wasn't making as much money.
Well, did her boyfriend care about her dancing?
I don't think so, but it did definitely affect their relationship. Rosie even said that like she would just shit on him, like, and be like, you're cheating on me, you're a bad person, like, whatever. And I think some of that psychology is from like hearing all of these gross things from the men at the club. And she would like, even she said she would project it onto him.
Right.
Yeah, it was not a good mix. But she definitely persisted. She was determined to make some money. She needed money for rent in school. She'd even do her psychology homework at the bar, which is like genius because like a lot of the women would say like, oh, well, I'm in school. Like, can you pay me to like pay for my school or my rent or whatever? And she was actually in school. And so she'd bring her like homework and do it at the bar. And it's like a genius pickup like thing. It's genius. And it's like a great way to multitask.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things, which I kind of relate to, everyone would say that her handwriting was like a font.
Oh, that is the best.
Yeah, she was like so organized and detailed and just like articulate. And like she was taking these classes and stuff, and it really taught her how to even better like, read people and stuff like that. So it was all around, she's really on the up and up at this point, even though she's not raking in as much money. So she was really wanting to kind of set herself up for a future. She didn't want to be a dancer forever. And so after she got pregnant, you know, that really put a lot of strain on the relationship with her and her boyfriend, and they did break up.
Aww.
I know. And so she quit dancing for a while and focused on being a mom. I don't know if I'm assuming I think she went back to serving tables. I'm pretty sure she went back to waitressing.
I mean, no shame. Do what you gotta do.
No, not at all. But like, you make 10 times more money, like as a dancer, if you're at these big clubs. At least like that was the allure when she previously went from waitressing to dancing. She was making like 10 times. So anyway, and then we get to 2007, which, as anyone who was alive in 2007 that's old enough to remember it knows, in the middle of the year, something bad kind of happened. So the entire economy crashed, and especially Wall Street crashed hard. And
I don't know where I was, but I feel like this just like, I did not give a shit. Like, I feel like everybody else around me was like freaking out, and I was like 12, and I was like... Well,
you would have been in like 4th grade, because I would have been in 5th grade. Yeah.
I was dealing with puberty. I didn't care about people's stocks. So... if you're like me, then, you know, quick recap, I guess America was in shambles.
Yeah, no, the housing market declined like this. It was basically like how the stock dropped like at the beginning of coronavirus, except like the housing market and every other facet of the economy dropped, and not just like, because the stock market's not real. It's just people say what it's worth. It's kind of bullshit. But anyway, for people on Wall Street who are investors and, you know, shareholders and, you know, hedge fundy people or whatever, like half of them lost their jobs. So think of who was previously going and dropping the big bucks at these clubs. That's these people. So you have half that are out of a job, and the other half are like, I can't spend money because what if it happens again? So I'm not going to like throw $1,000 bills at this girl or whatever.
Right.
And Rosie, just like everyone else, was really hit hard by it too. And so what do you do when you need money? I love this.
I don't know.
She pulled out her... What?
I said, I don't know. What do you do? Because I need money too.
I mean, well, I'll tell you what she did. And she pulled out her get money list containing every wealthy man who's given her his phone number at the club, and she starts calling up every single one by one, just going down the list saying, hi, remember me? Like, she's like, it's incredible, honestly.
Ooh, I'd be terrified if I were those men.
Well, but like, you send a cute picture, like a sexy picture, and like, you'll see they also kind of do this later on. But this tactic works with these, like, rich asshole men. It works. Not all of them are assholes. We'll get to it. But so anyway, she did not have much luck. When she did decide she had to go back to the club, it was a completely different ballgame when she returned. You can imagine that it would be, since most, if not all, the previous Wall Street people were no longer bringing all the money into the clubs and stuff. And according to Rosie, there were all these Russian girls and Colombian girls, and they were giving blowjobs for $300, and they were good looking. And I was like, I can't compete with that shit. Me neither, honestly. Me neither. I mean, maybe 500. Okay, moving on. Yeah, moving on. But luckily for Rosie, a familiar face stood out. Samantha Barbash.
Oh my God, how did I know it?
I know. It's almost like I set it up that way. And she too was doing business differently than before. Because they didn't have the influx of all these people coming into the clubs, they had to do a different tactic. So essentially, she would send some of the younger girls that were kind of under her. She's always the matriarch, you know, and she would send them out to go pick up men at restaurants and other bars and bring them back to the club.
So she is a pimp.
No. Like, no, I don't like the word pimp anyway, but like, no, she's just telling them to basically, because she's older, she's had a lot of plastic surgery done. She kind of has like, I mean, she even said it, like she has more of like that classic like stripper look. She's not a stripper though. I want to make that clear. They're dancers, not strippers.
Okay.
But yeah, so she would send the young pretty girls out, and well, I mean, we'll kind of explain it more, but basically they'd bring them back to the club so that they could rack up
Free
charges at the
marketing.
club. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A lot of these men would go back in the champagne room, which is like the private fancy rooms in the back where you could get like a private lap dance or other things. And you know, it was the only place in the club that there weren't cameras, so there was a lot of drugs going on and stuff like that. But Samantha didn't have to have sex with these men. In fact, like a lot of the girls that she had sending them out, they did not have sex with the men at all. So they didn't need to do that to get the big bucks. So that's not necessarily what was happening in the champagne room with like Samantha's girls for the most part. And we'll get to why they didn't. Oh, God. All right. So first, before we get into like the really criminal stuff, because this is technically legal what they're doing. You know, going out and bringing people in. It's called fishing.
Right.
It's a thing people do for like club promotion and stuff.
It's just marketing.
It literally is. So my next sentence is, first, let's talk about Samantha's, quote, marketing scheme. Essentially, she'd go through her list like Rosie did and call or text the men, usually sending a picture of one of the younger girls instead of her, two that were kind of the other two pictures you have. So Karina Pasucci and Marcy Rosen. So I can't remember what order I sent you them in. They're obviously going to be on the Instagram, all listeners. Avery, Karina's the one that's dressed up.
The one with the amazing purse?
Yes. She looks amazing in that picture. That's why I picked it.
She honestly kind of looks like Eva Longoria.
She has that vibe to her, definitely. And, yeah. So these are kind of the two kind of like second tier figures, if you will, in this story. So one of the girls would go meet up with the guy at the restaurant and get him drunk. Then the rest would show up and be like, oh my God, my sisters are here. Like, let's go to the strip club. And then that's kind of how it evolved to be more of like they're all involved. Like it's, you know, the plan definitely evolved. We're going to get to the next evolution of it right now. So it wasn't always foolproof. Obviously, not everyone wanted to go to the strip club. Not everyone was, some people were like lame and didn't want to do drugs and, you know, that kind of thing. My wife wouldn't like that. I mean, your wife wouldn't like a lot of things you do, bro.
Right.
Your wife doesn't even like you. So Samantha was really resourceful and determined. Kind of, you know, fill in the cracks and make sure that none of the guys slipped through the cracks, that they didn't waste a whole night and it didn't pan out, that type of thing. Yeah. So this is where things get very, 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 very illegal. Or so criminal, you might say. The wine's starting to hit. I'm having fun. All right. Speaking of, let me take one sip before I get into this. All right.
I heard that.
That wasn't a burp. It was just like my voice had, I don't know what happened there. As much as I love this story, like I think it's like definitely has a female empowerment overtone, kind of like fuck the patriarchy, very fuck the patriarchy, like fuck the, you know, eat the rich type of like vibe, which here for all of those things.
I'm here for all of that, and I'm loving this like new wave of empowerment that's coming through, even with that like GameStop bullshit that like hit the news this week where people are like, screw the rich, like let's take the power back. And I'm like, I'm cool with that. And the right context, yes.
No, absolutely. I just, as much as I love all this, you know, the vibe of this story and what we're going to get into, and it's like a very candid look into kind of how hard the overarching umbrella of like the sex work industry is, but whether you're a dancer or a stripper or, you know, kind of a traditional sex worker, or if you're on OnlyFans and, you know, you're kind of an independent sex worker, I like love talking about that stuff and love that aspect of this. But here's where I kind of want to tread lightly, because I'm definitely not condoning anything that's about to happen.
Okay, I'm eager.
Yeah, but also I'm going to be laughing and I'm going to be excited because it's a fucking true crime comedy podcast. So
Okay,
just
let's get
remember
to
all
it.
this. I know, I'm just being, I want to cover my ass.
Okay.
My next sentence is, okay, anyway, because I knew you'd say that. So their solution to kind of fixing the problem of wasting nights on people that didn't want to go to the club, it was a fun little mixture Samantha came up with. It was a custom mixture of MDMA and ketamine.
Oh.
So if you don't know, MDMA, very like Molly, ecstasy, like happy drug, that type of thing. Ketamine,
Psychedelic, right?
yeah, it's like borderline like psychedelic, very like euphoric, like Euphoria, the show. And ketamine is a fucking horse tranquilizer. so it is strong. Special K is
It'll knock
strong.
you on your ass, I'm pretty
sure. It literally will. You'll see. Okay, we'll get to it. So they would take a little pinch of this like mixture, and like when one of the girls was talking to the guy, he would be looking at one girl and then the other girl would like sneak it in his drink when he looked away. So it's very much like a very planned out, very like all that.
Yeah.
They'd sprinkle a little bit in the man's drink and voila, I wrote. The Molly would make the men happy and the ketamine fucks with your... It does. It's a very happy drug.
Yeah.
And so the ketamine fucks with your memory. So you don't like necessarily black out, but it's more of a like a haze. Like you're not going to remember. You're just going to remember bits and pieces. So it's a win-win.
I'm not condoning any of this either, but I will say it's a nice refresher that the girls are doing this for once rather than being the victim of it, you know?
That's why I prefaced it, because I was like, there is a lot of that kind of payback mentality.
Like, yes, that is bad, but it's also refreshing to see the generalized victim of that scenario being in the opposite position.
Yeah, 100%. And that was a lot of the motivation for the women as well. They were very kind of aware of that, and that was a motivator. So these wealthy men literally didn't know what hit them because basically they get kind of drunk, but they're awake enough that it's not setting any alarm bells as far as like getting him into the car and getting him to the club. And he would pass under the security cameras getting into the club type of thing. So the club could see, oh, you're here, you know, proof of him being there. They'd basically either take him back to the champagne room and kind of like half-ass like stripping on him or whatever, or like dancing on him, and then like be like, what's your date of birth and what's your social security and what's your last four digits? Because they would basically, what they would do is they would rack up their credit cards, max them out. And so a lot of times they'd literally be asking them like, what's the social security? So that like they're on the phone with American Express while he's getting a lap dance drugged out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, literally insane. And a lot of these men, they would rack up like $40,000 on their credit card because they're like rich and there's like no limit.
Oh my God, with their black cards.
Yeah, Amex black cards, definitely. If the men like later were like, holy shit, they woke up and they're like, what the fuck happened? A lot of them, you know, would end up calling Samantha like in the days following, demanding to know like what happened and where their money had gone. Right. But she was the best PR spin master. Like she would say things like, she'd sweet talk them and be like, you were so happy, don't you remember? You were tipping everyone. You had so much fun. Like it was just us girls. It was so much fun. Like she got away with it. Like they would believe her, which is
oh my God.
Yeah, she was good at what she did. And so these charges rarely went contested for the reason I just said. And also like many of these men weren't going to go to the police and be like, oh, like they, you know, date rape drugged me and then, you know, took all my money at the strip club and then have their wife find out or whatever. So, because a lot of these men were married and so they didn't want anything to come out.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course they were.
Yeah, of course they were. Men, I'll tell you. Samantha definitely had a solid thing going as far as it was working for her. You know, they were making money. They were really kind of like bringing a lot of money into the club too. So the club was like kind of looking the other way.
Right.
So if you haven't caught on by now, this is basically the plot of the movie Hustlers, because this is the story behind the movie Hustlers.
Yeah!
Yeah, with J-Lo and Constance Wu and all the little cameo and Lily Reinhart and Keke Palmer and then the little cameos from like Lizzo and Cardi B. It was a great movie. Great movie.
Yes, I love it. Oh my God.
Yes,
And I mean, I
it's
kind
so
of had a
good.
feeling when the bar's name was like Hustler or whatever.
Yeah.
but-
Well, in the movie, I think the bar's name instead of Scores, it's Moves. They've like, and all the characters have different names, but like kind of the Ramona is what she's called in the movie, and that's Samantha Barbash, and that's J-Lo's character. And then like Destiny is Rosie, and that's played by Constance Wu. I mean, it's not really accurate. There's a lot that is, but there's a lot to make it into a movie as well.
Right.
So great movie, watch it. Just know it's not quite real. I mean, it's based on. So back to Rosie, because we've spent a lot of time with Samantha, we're going back to Rosie. So after she kind of saw like Samantha's scheme when she came back to like the club and kind of was like watching it and seeing how much money they were making, she like immediately wanted in, which like I do not blame her. As far as like in her psychology, like it makes sense that she'd like immediately like,
Well, it'd be low-hanging fruit.
well, yeah, and it's like an easy, she needed money, they had a way to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're in those situations, you know, you make bad decisions. Essentially, kind of Samantha was at the helm of the quote company with as like a CEO role, and Rosie was like the CFO. She streamlined the operation and organized it with detailed bookkeeping and documents and files, just like a legal business would. And business was good. And it definitely evolved. Their tactics, like, they sharpened up. They were always on the lookout for Rolexes and Amex black cards. Always. Their approach to picking up men at restaurants and bars was getting more and more effective, with Rosie recounting, I love this. I'd show up dressed in a blazer. I was pretending that I also came out of work and had a rough day. People would say, what kind of work are you in? I'm like, I'm in marketing. Which literally
Not even a lie.
I know, that's why it's so great. But of course, their operation wasn't without snags. And because men are dirty, gross, horny pigs, some of them would like demand like sexual acts, especially like once they were on all the drugs, they would be very aggressive and all that. Not fun. Rapey. Some of the requests were wild, and I only included this because, I don't know, it's just, I love a good contrast, something you're not expecting. So one seemingly vanilla married family man requested to be penetrated by a champagne bottle, for example.
Oh my God.
Yeah, don't tell your wife. But also do, because maybe she can do it for you.
Oh my God.
No kink
Oh my
shaming.
God. Okay. All right.
No kink shaming.
I'm not kink shaming. That was just intense, and we might have younger audience.
It's gonna be marked as explicit on iTunes, so they know what they're getting into.
Okay.
So we do rape shame, though. I want to be very clear. We do rape shame on this podcast. You know, the aggressor, not the victim. But anyway, yeah, like, let's be clear on that.
That sounded so bad, actually. Like, right after you corrected yourself, I, like, realized, I was like, oh my God, that sounded so bad.
Because I have it written down, and I'm like, oh, and then I say it out loud, and I'm like, oh, it comes off, it hits differently when you're saying it out loud. All right. Anyway, the women, like, were not interested in doing all this stuff, because that's what they were trying to get out of doing by doing this scheme. So, in Rosie's own words, you weren't getting paid to sit and talk and hang out anymore. Girls were doing dirty things. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. Yeah. So Rosie did not want to give a blowjob for $300, and she did not want to do dirty things.
Well, good for you, Rosie.
I know. No shame on if you want to do dirty things. She just did not. So when a business can't provide a service or make a good in-house, you outsource. And that's exactly what Rosie did. She used sources like Craigslist to find sex workers, and she would cut them in to the profit when their services were needed.
Oh. So Rosie was the pimp. Plot twist.
Yeah, kind of a little bit of a pimp energy. She, more of a madam energy. It wasn't as...
That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, like a pimp to me like reads like aggressive and like very like bad, but this was like the opposite. Like literally she would take all these like girls out, and if they were kind of rough around the edges or needed help, she would like dress them up and take them to get their
She would
makeup
like
and
train
nails
and groom them.
Yeah, she would like make them look nice and give them nice things and treat them well. So very not like pimp energy, but kind of,
also
there's a little bit of that.
Psychological manipulation. But okay.
Well, no, I mean, they knew the sex workers knew what they were getting into. That was part of their payment.
All right.
So, yeah, I'm for it. Glad we made full circle on that. So, obviously, Samantha and Rosie got the biggest cuts. And, like, do you want to guess, like, what kind of an average pull was?
Per person or per night?
Per person.
So, per worker per night?
Well, so how much at the end of the night, after they'd, like, cut up everything, given everyone their payment, how much do you think that, like, Samantha and Rosie would individually get? Because they both got the same amount.
$40K?
Well, if you split it in half for 20, but that was just average. On some nights, they get, like, 100.
Oh, wow.
In one night.
Wait, so was I, like, kind of correct?
Yeah. Like, they're, as the leaders, they would get a cut, and they'd split it.
Cool.
And then, like, Karina and Marcy would get a smaller cut, and it'd kind of go down the ladder like that. But also, allegedly, I want to be clear, allegedly, the club also got a cut. Allegedly. I don't want to be sued. And this kind of gave them a little bit of control over the club. Instead of previously having to give away, like, 30% of their, like, tips every night to the club, they were now cutting the club into their scheme. So it was like a power reversal, which I find very interesting. But money comes with one thing, and that is greed. And in Samantha and Rosie's wake was a trail of screwed over, disgruntled men. Even if most of them were shit humans, which, I mean, a lot of them were. But greed also makes you reckless. So Samantha especially fell, victim to this. She got greedy with shoes, purses. Like, they had, like, closets. Like, when you talk about a closet, they had closets. Lots of red bottoms, lots of, things I don't know the name of. And she often maxed out the men's credit cards instead of kind of padding the money over multiple nights, so that it wouldn't be as obvious to them that, like, they were getting screwed over, and then they would come back for more. But if you, like, max the card, they're like, fuck you, never come back. So Rosie kind of was, like, pissed off at this, and they kind of riffed about it. They really kind of were frustrated with each other because Rosie was very, like, long-term planner and by the book, literally bookkeeper.
Right.
And so things were, like, unraveling. They were really starting to unravel. So Karina and Marcy a lot of times, like, would just say, like, fuck this, I don't want to do this anymore. And they'd kind of, like, disappear for a few weeks and then come back. So Samantha had to kind of, like, find new people to, like, fill the gaps. And a lot of the people that she would fill in, she kind of had, she kind of had that caring, I want to fix you type of, like, I want to mother you. But she had that type of vibe, but then the downside of that is a lot of the people that were coming in were not reliable. They were, like, kind of messy. And so it was really kind of getting, bad. Like, one of the girls came back and she was covered in bite marks, like, head to toe.
God.
One of the men got a concussion. Lots of just, like, messy things. And in the movie, I don't know if this happened, but, like, one of the funniest scenes is when they're, like, the guy gets the concussion and they're, like, figuring out how to deal with it, and then they just, like, leave him naked in front of the hospital. It's,
oh my God.
I know it's bad, but it is
terrible.
It is funny.
That is terrible, because the same thing also happens to women, and that is something that I would be really sad about.
Totally.
So we have to feel the same way about men.
Oh, totally, but I can't remember if he was a good guy or a bad guy, so
okay.
Jury's out.
Subjective.
So, in Rosie's words, things had gotten really exhausting, and that's why, well, and now I'm switching to Rosie's words. I don't know why I wrote it that way. Anyway, that's why I think we got greedy, she said, because the amount of stress we had to endure, we're just like, you know what? These people are fucking pissing me off. Just for that, I'm going to max out his credit card like a penalty. You're going to be left with zero balance, zero credit line, just for being annoying. We needed to make it worth it. because it was so like it was getting like to be like a really hassle instead of a hustle.
Yeah.
So and then it blew up. So enter Fred. I don't know if that's his real name or just his first name. Didn't look that up. Let's go with Fred. So Samantha had previously met Fred at Hustler, and one night she and Rosie met up with him at a bar, and, you know, there we go. Usual formula. But this time was different. So here we go. This is, oh God. So, okay. So usual formula, but I'm about to tell you why it's bad. So if there was ever reason to drink, Fred had it. His wife had just left him because she was reportedly overwhelmed with their autistic child. Ugh, so gross. Oh, and his house had just been flattened by Hurricane Sandy.
So that's good.
Yeah. So drink the fuck up, Fred. You deserve it. Like, drink the fuck up. But, so after kind of having a heart-to-heart conversation with Rosie, she and Samantha, you know, I imagine Rosie was talking to him. Samantha does the pinch and the drink. And they got him in the car, took him to the club. He was, you know, later said that he was just like out of it. He's like, I guess it was a room. There was like a table. The table was square, that kind of thing. And so normal, like kind of MO. And they had gotten so brazen about it at this point. They would just like talk in front of the person. Like I told you earlier about how they call American Express like in front of him.
Yeah.
It was next level from that. So he like wanted his credit card back. Like he was hearing things they were saying about like, oh, like one of their friends got like, you know, gang raped or whatever. And he's like, get me out of here. So
he wasn't that out of it.
Well, he was enough to where he could they were usually in it enough that they could talk.
Yeah.
And like be cognizant. But he had a reason why he did not want to spend. So not only after the divorce, like all that, the house, right? So he wanted his credit card back because the mortgage payment on his now flattened house was tied to the fucking credit card.
Ooh.
So Rosie hesitated for a second, but Samantha was like, if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it. I'll do it, or whatever. And then so she cleaned him out anyway. He was left with absolutely nothing. They cleaned out all of his cards. He had 3, I believe.
Oh my God, that is so sad.
I know. It's like, okay, haha, this is amazing woman power. And then it's like, hold on.
Actually, never mind.
Yeah. So this actually, because he was left with nothing, is obviously horrible and stuff. But it was a clear difference from the other women's, like the women's other victims. Because he didn't have anything. He had nothing left to lose. So he immediately was calling the credit card companies, calling, I believe he called this other girl who doesn't have a name. Her name's been redacted, and like is like, where's my money and like all this, one of the messy ones. And so he ended up calling the police, and they actually took him seriously because even though they had not previously taken any, because there had been a couple others that had reported it, they'd been like, yeah, right, bro, yeah. I'm making the jack off motion, just like, yeah. So, like, they ended up, like, believing him because one of the newer women in the group, the one that kind of the name is redacted, I think Rosie just, like, doxed her at one point and was like, yeah, it was this bitch. But I didn't look up the name. So she had basically just, like, admitted to him what went on after he, like, talked to her. He was like, tell me what the fuck happened. And she's like, yeah, we kind of drugged you and took all your money. So he recorded it.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so he was able to take that to the police. It went up like to the DEA, and they were handling it. And they actually sent the girl in to be like a
informant,
catch him in the act, like a wired. Yeah, they wired her up allegedly. They have not said it, but I'm pretty sure. And she was dealing with like a John in a hotel, and I guess she needed help for like with something.
Rosie?
And No, this is the unnamed girl.
Oh.
Yeah. So she was on one of their little, like, projects. Because I'm pretty sure at the end, they started literally, like, they'd be waiting outside in, like, Rosie's Cadillac Escalade. And Samantha and Rosie would be, like, in the car. and then one of the girls would go up to like the hotel room and then like hang out with the guy, get him drunk, run down, give them the credit card. They'd run it and then give the credit card back. Like, it was like very like to the point where the club wasn't even involved in some of them.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure it was that situation. And she was like acting super weird and like all that. And so Rosie and Samantha was like, fuck no, something's going on with this bitch. Because wasn't she just in jail type of things? They were like, no. So it didn't matter that like the sting operation failed though, because the DEA were closing in on them anyway, because they had kind of built up enough. I think there were more than one victim. So a lot of them wouldn't come forward though, as we've kind of touched on before. One victim was a prominent doctor named Dr. Zayed Yunan, who was actually able to have the charges reversed, only to have Scores sue him for the money. And like say, you actually do owe us the money.
Oh my God.
So since that was like public, knowledge or whatever, the DEA was like, okay, yeah, we've got a pattern of behavior at this point with these women. So they finally had enough to move forward. And on June 9th, 2014, so this went on for like 5 years, like pretty like,
damn.
It was a 5 or 6 years like scheme that worked. And they finally, June 9th, just kidding, 2014, Samantha Barbash was arrested at an ATM, which is like so ironic. And eventually all the other girls, Karina, Marcy, and Rosie, Rosie being the last one, were also brought in. So they were all charged with conspiracy, forgery, grand larceny, and assault. But as we'll get to, that's not exactly what happened. Okay. So Rosie was kind of the first one to break. Like Samantha said that she like was having a breakdown and like whatever in the jail cell, because they were all put together too, because they wanted to like see if they would talk.
Yeah.
So she was the first to own up and start talking, and she struck a plea deal. And then pretty quickly after that, Samantha did too. So Rosie pleaded guilty to grand larceny and assault. Sip of wine. And Samantha pleaded guilty to conspiracy, assault, and grand larceny. So, do you want to know how much they got, like time-wise, from their plea deal?
4 years?
5 years of probation.
Oh,
for all of that.
Wow.
Yeah. That's, now you know why. That's that picture that we'll have on Instagram of Samantha in front of the courthouse with the middle fingers.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you see why she was happy now.
Yeah.
So, but kind of weirdly, I think because they had other charges against them, Karina and Marcy got 16 weekends at Rikers,
Ooh.
which yikers.
Yeah.
And 5 years of probation. So I'm not sure exactly why. It was kind of hard to find, but I think they had like maybe they had other drug, charges on them. And so that was their deal that they got. So you might ask, what happened to all the money?
Yeah. What happened? Yeah.
Who got to keep it? They did.
What?
They got to keep all the money.
You're kidding.
They weren't even fined. I mean,
What?
they had like probation fines and stuff like that, but they like weren't fined for the money, like the millions.
Oh my God.
Probably tens of millions, honestly.
Oh my God.
Fucking wild.
Oh my God.
And the other player, the clubs, you might ask,
Right.
what were they, charged with?
Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, because
Oh my God.
yeah. There's a lot of like looking the other way at clubs, and
Yeah.
because crime helps their business.
Right.
So we're almost done. I know it's a long journey, but like there's just so much juicy shit in this that like I almost couldn't cut anything out. But so where are these ladies now? So Rosie wrote a memoir about her journey through the events. Burp. That's not part of the script. The wine sitting. Where am I? Oh, the memoir, right. So it's called The Sophisticated Hustler. It's $9.99 on Amazon, by the way. And she lives with her daughter and her daughter's father. I guess they like got back together. I didn't really see much more information on that, but anyway, not sure. So she's also like really candid. There's like tons of interviews if y'all are interested. There's also a 2020 special that has Rosie and Karina on it. So if you want interviews with them, do that. It's on YouTube. So Samantha has a body sculpting spa, kind of like a med spa vibe, in New York. And she also has a memoir. It's entitled Underscore, which is kind of
That's
fun little
cool.
pun there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when she was paying the club, she was overscore. Okay, moving on. It's also available on Amazon. I think it's $20. But however, she was like not happy when like J-Lo's production company like bought the rights from her for her story. I think they paid her like $6,000 or what. That's at least what she claims. And the money made like a lot. Yeah, a lot. So she was saying they tricked her. There was some legal stuff going on.
Well,
she also didn't.
Who?
I know. She didn't attend the premiere. And she was saying that she was, like, defamed. And honestly, like, I don't think she was. I think she was portrayed really well by J-Lo. I don't think it was too negative.
I mean,
definitely,
it's
like, the
J-Lo
story
for
I just told was
crying out
more
loud.
negative.
Like, they could have chosen somebody, like, not as angelic to portray somebody accused of criminal acts, but they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, J-Lo did a great job. And,
Exactly.
I mean, obviously, they chose J-Lo because it's her production company, but like still, it's anyway. So Marcy, she's like really staying out of the public eye. There's like really not any pictures of her. The only one I could really find was the mugshot. I'll definitely like do a different one if I can find one. And she's like focusing on rebuilding her life, and I don't blame her. You know, she had a really abusive pimp boyfriend, you know, when this whole was going on. So good luck to her. I hope she's doing great. And finally, and I love this one, Karina Pasucci is working on her associate's degree in criminal psychology, which, I mean, let's have her on the podcast.
Yes,
like, get
love
it, girl.
that.
And that's my story.
Yay! Okay, so this week I'm going to be doing the Gainesville Ripper. So, yes. So I'm sure y'all have heard of it. Maybe not necessarily known as the Gainesville Ripper. I don't know. We'll just have to see. But
Definitely much darker than what I just talked about.
yeah, exactly. So I'm glad that you did a little bit of a lighter one because
ease in. You know, go slow. Just the tip.
Okay, inappropriate. All right.
I think it's appropriate.
Okay, so I got most of my information from the 3 websites, Wikipedia, All Things Interesting, and biography.com.
Okay, wait, before you continue, let me state mine, because I forgot, and I just want to, like,
I mean, you kind of did as you were going, but yeah.
As I was going, but I did
Might as well just cover your tracks.
Let's do it. We're learning as we're going, guys. We're going to be a little crunchy at the beginning. We're going to really blossom into a beautiful flower, and then we might wilt, but then the rain comes. All right. Oh, God. So Jessica Pressler from New York Magazine, as I said, ABC News, and Time Magazine. I use Slate, which is, like, my favorite, like, politically website, and then Wikipedia. Donate to Wikipedia. So
okay,
you make it.
So back to Gainesville Ripper. Okay, so his name, wait, let me just do a quick search so I can make sure, because I had been calling him his nickname. Just want to be a
Gainy.
So first of all, though, like, I'll just do a little background while I'm searching this. So this takes place in Gainesville, Florida, which is home of the University of Florida, and it takes place in crap.
We're professional on So Criminal. So.
Okay, so Danny Rolling was born May 26, 1954 in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Been there.
Yes, and he died on October 25th, 2006. He was age 52. So he was charged with murdering 5 students at the University of Florida over the course of 4 days in August of 1990.
I mean, that's more than he had more motivation to, like, do this in that amount of time than I, did for homework, when I was on a college campus. So
right. I mean, that's a lot.
It's a lot. A lot.
So get ready because this is going to be heavy. We'll try our best to not make it so heavy.
Yeah.
But,
While
it's
while you're
serious.
getting heavy, I'm gonna grab my wine. I can still hear you, but if listeners, if you don't hear me talk for a second, that is why.
Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll narrow in on certain aspects and then like zoom out, come back in. I'll let y'all know what's up. So basically in Danny's early years, his dad was a police officer in Shreveport, and this dad was emotionally abusive towards him, like from the get-go.
Police officer emotionally abusive?
Yeah. So basically the dad always told Danny, even from like the day he was born, like that he was unwanted, and the dad abused the whole family, like Danny, his mom, and his brother. So
it kind of sounds like the dad was probably abused too, and that seems like a patterny type thing.
Probably, and maybe that's like what led him into a career path with like a power assertion type role.
Or a small penis.
Well, that's not to say that...
No, there's nothing wrong with a small penis. I'm just saying some
I was saying there's nothing wrong with police. I mean, some police officers.
Oh, there are problems with police. I mean,
obviously there are, but not every single one of them. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, my case for next week, we're going to get into that. So just look forward to that.
Moving on. Stop. Okay, my turn. My time to shine. So Danny's mother was 19 years old when she had him, which that's got to be so hard. And let alone being a teen mom, but having a jackass husband, baby daddy, that whole situation. So I have here, for reference of dad's fuckery, the mom... Yeah, the mom once had to go to the hospital because she claimed that Danny's father, her husband, tried to make her cut herself using a razor blade. So... Okay. Yeah.
There's some psychology there that's just listeners
gonna be a crazy
unpack
scene.
that.
Yeah. So on top of that, obviously, the dad was a strict disciplinarian, of course. And in one instance, he pinned Danny to the ground, handcuffed him, and had his police friends come and take him away. Why do you think this, Joe? What do you think warranted this?
I don't know. I can't think of anything that would.
Honestly. I mean, I guess maybe like killing somebody. I don't know, but
maybe if he had shot his father first.
Yeah. Okay, well, pretty much it's because he embarrassed his dad.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing that I just suggested. It's very much on the same level, you know?
So...
Jesus.
Yeah. So basically, the mom tried to repeatedly leave the husband, but always ended up coming back. I guess it was like a sense of Stockholm syndrome. I mean, it's not too uncommon that people are trapped in these situations, and like it looks like they wouldn't be trapped but to the outside, but they actually are. Like, they don't have money, they don't have the mental stability because of the way that this person abuses them. I mean, whatever, we all know. So another instance of the abuse was when Danny was 1 year old. He was beaten by his father because he wasn't crawling correctly.
Okay, but like that's part of being a baby. You gotta mess up before you get it right.
Yeah, you kind of gotta like learn how to crawl in order to successfully crawl. Like,
Jesus.
Okay, so Danny's school counselors described him as suffering from an inferiority complex.
You don't say.
Yeah, with aggressive tendencies and poor impulse control.
Sounds like his dad.
Control. I mean, that's just going to show you where we're going with this. So Danny eventually took to drugs and drank as a coping mechanism for his unfortunate life. And
I mean, I would.
Yeah, I mean, I would too. Shit, can't even crawl right. So he tried to enlist in the armed forces after not being able to land a steady job, and the Navy wouldn't take him. So finally he was able to, I guess, pull some strings and get into the Air Force. But this did not last very long. So he eventually quit the Air Force because he used too much drugs while there, which was described as taking acid more than 100 times.
Yeah, and when you're dealing with, like, planes... I don't know about that, Danny.
I mean, and just like 100 times, like, oh my God, was
How
the
long
first
was
50
like,
not good enough? Was your brain okay?
Was a 1 not good enough? How
like,
do you know
what?
the time span?
Well, no. It just said that he did not live there, or he didn't. I mean, he obviously didn't live there.
I mean, even if it's a year, like that's 1 every 3 days. Like that's a lot. That is not good for your brain. So.
I mean, his brain was already in some trouble, but...
Not like that helped.
Yeah, so following his discharge, he was actually able to marry and try to fake a normal life.
They always do.
Yeah. So, at the age of 23, Danny was with his wife for 4 years, and she left him because he tried to kill her. Or he threatened to, I don't know.
That's a good reason to leave.
Blurred lines, threaten versus try. I don't know.
Blurred lines, Robin Thicke. There's just a lot
Blurred
going on.
lines.
Yeah, such a problematic. Speaking of problematic.
Okay, so that was in 1977. So Danny then was like super bummed and sad, and he turned his anger into rape and raped a woman who looked like his ex-wife.
Very Ted Bundy.
And yeah, he actually loves Ted Bundy. Like, if Ted Bundy is Danny's Kim K, he's like, I've just really wanted to be like Ted Bundy. He's really cool. That's exactly how Danny feels.
What was that voice?
That was my like weirdo obsession voice. Okay. So, anywho, though, so after he raped this lady who looked like his ex-wife, later that same year, he actually, I think it was accidental, but he ended up killing a woman in a car accident. So, I don't know if that was on purpose or if it was on accident, and like seeing somebody die just like triggered everything like so much worse. Like, I guess, I don't know. So,
I don't know how that works, but...
Yeah, I mean, we still have to make note of it. So,
yes, it's a possibility.
After that, he was in and out of the criminal justice system in Louisiana, Mississippi, hotty toddy, Georgia, and Alabama. So, he was actually able to break out of prison several times. Ted Bundy.
More criminal than justice, it sounds like.
Yeah. So some of his early crimes that had him incarcerated at first were he was arrested in Georgia a few times for robberies and for being a peeping Tom. As an adult, obviously, he struggled integrating into society. So
yeah.
For a while, he was a waiter at Poncho's in Shreveport.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's Mexican food.
It is. My mom, it was like the only Mexican. My mom grew up in Memphis. It was like the only Mexican place, and she has mentioned that it was very mediocre. So,
well, this is in Shreveport, so I guess it's
a chain. Yeah.
Okay. I just can't
kind of
imagine
a racist name too.
Like a crazy rapist murderer, like bringing
going
out
to a racist themed restaurant.
No, rapist, but
I thought you said racist because I was like Ponchos is a little. Right. But anyway, yeah.
So in May of 1990, this is like escalation. It's a little bit more recent years. So during a family dispute, Danny shot and tried to kill his dad. So
you said 1990?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's 30 years ago. Not too long.
Yeah. So basically, he was unsuccessful at killing his dad, but it caused his dad to lose an eye and an ear.
I don't necessarily feel that bad.
I know. It's like, I mean, close,
like, don't
but
do
not
that.
Cigar, but okay.
Yeah, like, don't do that. But also, like, it's not like the dad would have gone to jail for anything. He's a police officer. Like,
right.
So I mean, it's almost like that's kind of the only thing you can do in that situation.
Okay, so after
don't do that,
this... Yeah, so after this, Danny was like, oh shit, this was, I'm gonna get charged. So basically
by
he
his
went
dad.
And, yeah, so one of his like robberies back in Georgia, he stole somebody's like proper paperwork to steal their identity. So he like kept all of that in his back pocket and was like, I guess for my next major fuck up, I'm gonna pretend to now be somebody named Michael Kennedy.
Yeah, and the internet was
so-
like 1 year old, so they're not gonna like be able to do anything. So
Yeah, so pretty much after that, he used all of the paperwork he stole and tried to make a new life as pretending to be Michael Kennedy, which, you know, so he moved to Sarasota, Florida, and that's when he started his new little chapter, and that was in 1990. So his altercation with his dad was in May, and these Gainesville murders started in August of that same year. So
he didn't
that
waste
was
any time.
Definitely no. I mean, all he had to do was get his ducks in a row as Michael Kennedy, and then move on.
Well, and like this was back when you could literally just like lay a little picture on top of another piece of paper and just like copy it. You know, like you could just use a copier and like basically Photoshop, but like on paper, and like yeah. So like you could do whatever you wanted. Miss those days.
Yeah. Okay. So, basically, so the Gainesville Ripper, the murders, they happened August 1990. So he killed 5 college students. 4 of them were from University of Florida, and 1 was from Santa Fe College.
Is that like another college in the city?
Well, okay, so I probably should have looked into that. I'm assuming so, but I do think it's kind of strange that it's called Santa Fe College and it's in Florida. But
I wonder if it's like a community college in the same town. That's
probably.
Let's say it is. Let us know,
let's just
listeners.
make it up.
Give us 5-star review telling us exactly where Santa Fe College is.
Yeah, I'm sure you got a beautiful degree from there, so I'm really sorry for not knowing.
Oh, no, community college is where it's at, honestly.
So he would mutilate his victims' bodies, and he would pose them in really provocative ways. And like sometimes he would use mirrors to like emphasize that shock factor, make it extra freaky. He would also decapitate one of the victims' heads. So
oh yeah, that's a detail I will not forget.
Right. He was fucked up, and, you know, I've taken my fair share of forensics, my psychology, all of that, and basically there's a lot of
stuff in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there, and there's a lot of
you're
words.
like, I took all these classes, and there's all this stuff, and all these words in there.
Well, I was going to say, there's a lot of definitions and stuff, but I feel like the one that's fitting most is fucked. So...
Yeah, yes. In all
right.
caps, italicized, underlined, bolded.
Yeah. So his first 2 victims, well, let's just dive in, were Sonia Larson and Christina Powell. So they're both freshmen aged 17, and they shared an apartment outside of campus. I know. God, 17. I was drinking Four Loko.
Oh.
Okay, so... early morning hours of Friday, August 24th, Danny followed them home, which is really creepy. So I guess he found them and like stalked them. I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, and the only time that's happened to me when I was in Austin, and like even just like when you see it, it's like, okay, I don't know how I've heard about it. I know podcasts. I've listened to all this shit. In the moment, it's like, oh my God, you don't know what to do. And I'm assuming that because like they didn't freak out and like didn't like extra lock shit, that he was like sneaking around. It sounded more like a sneak.
Well, they might not have even known, especially because they were the first ones.
Yeah.
So basically he followed them home, and so Christina fell asleep on the couch and Sonia was asleep upstairs. So first, he breaks into the house and he watches Christina Powell on the couch sleeping. He just stands over her and is watching her. How creepy is that? Like, oh my God. Do y'all ever get that feeling? Like, that you feel like somebody's watching you, but then you, like, look around and you're like, actually, no, I'm just paranoid. Imagine that being real for once. Oh my God. The second that becomes real is the second that I will have a heart attack.
I'm going to move to Saturn, one of their rings. Yeah. I'm done with Earth.
So he watches Christina Powell asleep on the couch, and then he's like, you know, I'm going to look around, you know, before I wake them up, do some damage. Like,
as you do when you break into the house.
He's like, let's just explore. So he goes upstairs, and he finds Sonia Larson asleep. So he decides he's going to go for it. And he tapes Sonia's mouth shut and then stabbed her to death, all while she was trying to fight him off. So After murdering Sonia Larson, Danny went back downstairs and did the same thing to Christina Powell. He taped her mouth shut, tied her wrists together behind her back, and this was a little bit worse. So he threatened her with his knife while cutting her clothes off, which that is so scary. So scary. Yeah. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, and especially, like, I can't imagine that, like, it was totally silent, you know,
right,
when the upstairs situation happened.
That's what I was wondering. Like, I'm sure she was like, what the fuck is going on up there?
And like that half dream, half awake moment,
right?
Like that state, like it's so scary. That's like when you're most vulnerable too.
So after he cut off her clothes, he raped her, and then he forced her to lay down on the floor and then stabbed her 5 times in the back. So then
literally stabbed her in the back.
Yes, then it gets worse. So then he goes back to Sonia Larson's body and rapes her again. And then he went as far as to cut off their nipples, and he kept one as a token, like a souvenir,
hi, Ed Gein.
Trophy.
Like,
yeah. He was like, let me just like put this in my pocket for later. So then after that, he posed both of the girls, showered, rinsed off all the DNA, and then left. How fucked up is that? That is just so bad.
Yeah, especially since, like, there's no motivation. There's no, like
I mean, his motivation
reason.
is that he's had a shit life.
Oh,
but,
well,
I mean,
his motivation is that he's fucked up. But
right.
It's not like he, like, it was, like, a robbery gone wrong or anything. But, like, I just hate when these killers are like, I'm doing this because I like it. And I'm like...
Yeah, that makes it even worse. Okay,
and just,
so
like, rapid succession of events, too.
So, the next one, Krista Hoyt. So, literally just one day after Sonia
That's what I'm saying.
Christina's, I was going to say birthday. I don't know where I got that from. It was after their murder break-in. He broke into Krista Hoyt's apartment on Saturday, that next day. So he broke in through her sliding glass door using a knife and a screwdriver. So this is kind of important because we'll see that knife and like screwdriver again.
If you're building a house, do not put that in.
Right. Regardless of if somebody's going to break in, like, you never know when you're going to have to run downstairs in your towel and...
Yeah, my mom's house has one, like, in the back, because it was built, like, I don't know, 50s. So, like, I feel like that was a thing from, like, the 50s till, like, the 70s. And I'm sure these dorms weren't new. So this is, like, very, like, 70s vibes. All houses have that, like, sliding glass door that the original Night Stalker, like, comes in. Just, I don't like it.
Okay, so back to my story. So,
okay, I wanted to talk about doors.
Okay, all right. So, basically, after he broke into her house, he was like, oh, shit, she's not here. So, you know, instead of leaving like a normal person, he decided to sit on her couch and wait for her.
Ew.
Yeah. So at 11 o'clock that morning, Krista Hoyt came back to her apartment, and Danny was sitting there and surprised her from behind, put her in a chokehold, was able to subdue her, taped her mouth shut, tied her wrists together, and led her to the bedroom. So that is terrifying. And, you know, it's so not easy for me to read these terrible stories. And, you know, sometimes the way I talk.
Girl, I'm editing.
I
have to listen to it twice.
I know. And, like, I feel like sometimes my voice just sounds so, like, chipper. And I'm like, I'm not happy to be, like, saying these, like,
it's the wine. It's how we're getting through it. Like,
it's also just my voice, so, like, shit.
Yeah, when I start sounding really, like, as the more, like, I drink, the more that I'm like, like, yeah. So,
you know, and we also, like, love this. This is why we've made a podcast about it. So
yeah, like... yeah, morbid curiosity right here up in this podcast. So... Okay, you already know what you're getting into if you're listening at this point, so.
Yeah, so, anywho, he took her to the bedroom and did the exact same thing to her that he did the other girls. So he cut her clothes off and then raped her and then made her lay face down, stabbed her in the back. Eventually he ruptured Krista Hoyt's heart, and after her death, he decapitated her and placed her head on a shelf. Yeah, placed her head on a shelf as if it was looking at her dead body, like, for the shock value.
Like some kind of sick, like, sculpture you'd see in a museum.
Like, watching her dead body. Like, that is...
Yeah.
Oh, my God. That is...
And, like, I don't know what the timing was on all this, but, like, there is a good 8 minutes. Oh, no, I meant, like, on, like, how, like, when she died versus when he decapitated her. Because there's a good 8 minutes that your brain's still functioning. So I would hate for my last, like, thing, I pray to God I hope it wasn't the case in this, that, like, her last, like, thing she saw was not her own dead body. Like,
okay, well, and the other thing I wanted to mention was the fact that this was at 11 a.m. and I'm pretty sure that the other two girls, Sonia
didn't even process
and Christina,
that. Holy fuck.
That was also in the morning. And, like, I mean, obviously there's no, like, ideal killing time. But to me, it's not at the same time that I have my brunch.
So they were walking home in the morning. I was, like, picturing at night.
No.
Oh my God.
That's what's so weird to me is that all of this
so they had no idea.
No idea. And it's 11 a.m., like, on a college campus. Like, you wouldn't expect all of this crime to go down and, like, robberies. Like, you would think that
you're making a mimosa.
Exactly. So, yeah. So then on top of the decapitation, body looking at it, head, that whole thing.
That situation.
He also cut off her nipples, but he placed them next to her. So I guess her head was supposed to be
so
looking
weird.
at that too. Terrible.
Yeah.
So after all three of these murders, by now it's gained campus attention, and
you don't say.
Only after three,
the two wasn't enough.
Yeah, so basically everyone started freaking out. The media was talking about it. Students changed their daily routines and tried to take extra precautions. Like, they would sleep in groups. Some students even withdrew from school and went home because these murders happened at the beginning of the school year. It happened in, like, late August. Imagine if you're a freshman, which the first two victims were Sonia and Christina.
Oh my
Imagine
God.
this being your first, like,
that makes it so much worse. Not that it wouldn't have been bad, but, like, they were, like, finally, like, out of, like,
spreading
the house.
Their wings to
exactly.
fly.
I was gonna say, like, they're leaving the nest, and that's what they get. Fuck this dude. He's also ugly as fuck.
And it just makes it extra scary because, like, even now, like, I am still, like, super dependent on my parents and calling my mom for literally everything. And, like, I can't even imagine. I don't even want to go there. But, yeah. So, anywho, some kids even dropped out. They just decided to say fuck it. And I don't blame them either.
Yeah, I'm sure they did not get compensated by the school, though.
Probably not. School's got a lot to deal with right now.
Yeah, but also schools be greedy.
Yeah. Okay, so our next two victims are Tracy Pauls and Manny Taboda. We're just going to call him Manny because I don't want to botch it. So they're both 23 and they were roommates. So Manny was a male. Obviously, all of the other victims were women. But Tracy...
So they're our age.
Yeah. So Manny was a football player. He was a big guy. He was pretty much like besties with Tracy. Like, I think that, I have my really good friend Dave Valadez, and that's who I imagine as Manny. Like, just like a big guy friend who's like super protective and stuff. So they were both murdered on Monday, August 27th. And the very first murders, just for retrospect, were on August 24th. So these have been coming in hot, left and right. I'm sure that the police are very, very busy right now. So
his dad's like looking for him.
Come home.
I can't see you, but come home. Actually, don't come home.
So Danny broke in through their sliding glass door also, and he used the same tools.
I'm telling you guys, this is what I went and ran on the doors. This is why I'm talking about these doors.
Yeah,
I'm drunk, but I am talking about these doors.
he used the same knife and the same screwdriver. So here, Danny first found Manny asleep in one of the bedrooms, and obviously Manny woke up and tried to fight him off. And, obviously he was still asleep though and was ambushed. And so he was able to, unfortunately, kill Manny.
And the knife.
Yeah. So then Tracy heard all of this, fumbling around and I guess like shouting and stuff. She was like, what the fuck is going on? She came outside into the hallway and that's where she saw Danny. And she was like, oh, hell no. I don't know who you are.
Yeah.
So, obviously, as soon as she saw Danny, she hauled ass and tried to barricade herself in her bedroom.
Hi, Travis.
Yeah, that's my doggy, Travis. He wants to say hi to everybody. So, anywho, Danny was actually able to still get through. Shocker. Per usual, he taped her mouth shut, bound her wrists, cut off her clothes, raped her. Turned her over on her back, stabbed her in the back, posed her body, but get this, he left Manny's body untouched, and that's because Manny is a dude.
Yeah, and I feel like Manny would have, I like hate saying this, but in like Danny fucked up mind, like that was his barrier to get what he wanted.
Right. It sucks because obviously Manny doesn't fit his MO of all of these like young women, this big old football player and stuff. And he was like, obviously I need to get past this guy in order to get to the girl that I want.
It's like innocent bystander.
Yeah.
I want to be clear.
Everybody's innocent.
The women
here.
are not innocent. I am just saying it's just he was in the way, so he had to go.
And that's what really sucks. I mean, it sucks for everybody all around, but he was
they were all
way.
Innocent. There was absolutely no reason any of them deserved any of this.
Yeah. So, basically all of the murders happened less than 2 miles from each other around the University of Florida. So
he was just like sleeping outside and like going around and like spying on people and finding shit like that's.
Well, let me get to that.
Okay.
All right. So the university. Yes, you are. Thanks, Joe. So the university canceled classes for a week. Students started to bring baseball bats with them everywhere they went. Nobody went out alone during the day or the night. Students triple locked doors. Students would even sleep in shifts. They would all get together and they would like take shifts as to who had to be awake and like who could sleep. So then that way like nobody was left,
I really want to make like I took a shift joke. Well, I just did. But
all right. Okay.
Yeah. But no,
yes, you did.
I think
all right, Joe, that's enough.
No. I'm not it's not about that. I didn't know the detail about the bats. Like that's like a horrifying picture, like to walk around a college campus and everyone's like got a bat.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So
fucked.
By the end of August, thousands of students left campus and almost 700 never even came back because of this. Like the people who dropped out. Yeah. So
good for them that they could afford that. Because I would not have wanted to come back.
Well, I'm sure they probably hadn't even paid yet. It'd been like a week.
True.
So the investigation and the victimology. Let's talk about that.
Let's do it.
Except for Manny, all of his victims were petite white brunettes with brown eyes. And after the murders, the police had very few leads, but obviously faced a lot of pressure from everybody trying to get names and faces out of suspects, I mean, just imagine being around there at that time and the police just being like, yep, sorry, got nothing for you.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I know as much as you do. Sorry. Like, that's obviously not acceptable. So, anywho, so the police, their hands were tied. They didn't really have much to say about it. So finally, they were just under so much pressure. They were like name dropped 2 potential suspects just to subdue everybody for the time being. So these 2 potential suspects
great police work.
Yeah. Let's just ruin some people's lives just because we have a hunch.
I mean, it's Florida, so
So the first potential suspect was Edward Humphrey. So he was a University of Florida student. He had a history of mental illness, and unfortunately,
Same.
yeah, I mean, who doesn't? Unfortunately, though, Humphrey had multiple scars on his face because he had just recently gotten into a car accident. So everybody was like, wow, like, look at the scars on your face. Like, that works perfect.
He
for
looks the part.
This murderer. Yeah, exactly. And so it really sucks because then pictures of Edward Humphrey were displayed on multiple media outlets. And, you know,
we know how the media works.
Yeah, he was finally like publicly cleared, but
he's still fucked really forever.
Exactly, like that really sucks. Like all you have to do is like a basic Google search. Like imagine if you're applying for a job and somebody Googles and they're like, "Oh wow, he was a murder suspect," and his face was also kind of really scary at the time. You know,
ew, he didn't use Mederma on his face. Like fuck off.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
I'm gonna, anyway, move on.
Okay, so the other initial suspect was not publicly named or identified, but was also
how nice
cleared,
for him.
Exactly, that really sucks for Edward Humphrey, but, whatever. All right, so zooming back out. So instead...
Oh, I did want to add, I can't imagine as someone who, like, he already was, living with mental illness and was, obviously having
falsely
a hard time after this
of grisly murder,
car accident, and then like I hope he's doing okay.
I really hope so too.
I want to put that energy out there that I really do. So, all right, carry on with the darkness.
All right. So, zooming back out. So, instead of leaving duct tape on the dead bodies, Danny disposed of all of it in dumpsters to get rid of any of the fingerprints. He would also clean up all of the crime scenes and himself. He would use special solvents on the dead bodies, and he would remove any and all traces of semen. So, yeah. So, the arrest. So, finally, on September 7th, 1990, keep in mind, first murder was August 24th. So, I mean, it wasn't too long, but considering that it was like a 5-people murder spree is kind of a while.
I don't think that he would have gotten away with this. I think the cops would have done a better job now because you can't get rid of DNA like that anymore because the tests are so sensitive.
Right.
I don't know. I'm ranting at this point, but...
So, yeah. So finally, September 7th, he was arrested on a burglary charge in
Burglary
charge in Ocala. So it wasn't even for this. He was on a high-speed chase with the police for a robbery of a Winn-Dixie grocery store.
What do you need so bad in there? Like, that you're going to do that?
Yeah, so it was 2 weeks after the murder. And during the burglary investigation, police were able to make the ID that the tools used in the burglary of the Winn-Dixie also matched the tools for the college towns, like the sliding glass doors and all that.
Finally.
I mean, I guess he was like...
I guess they're not all dumb.
Financial resources and couldn't afford like extra tools. I don't know.
Well, he was probably like...
really comfortable with those.
Or that's all he had and he was just going around with that,
He didn't want to go out and upgrade after his...
I mean, he didn't steal a different screwdriver from the Winn-Dixie. He just stole some random shit.
That would have been a better idea.
Steal a different screwdriver.
Right. Okay, so to answer your question now, Joe, we find out he was living alone in the woods at a campsite that he made for himself near the student apartment complexes, which, by the way, we have a picture of his little tent that he made. Joe, I sent that to you as well. Okay. It has a thing that says police photo in the left corner, so it's got to be a fish. But yeah, it looks really crappy, and
I mean, it kind of almost looks like the things you'd see at like a Boy Scout summer camp.
I wouldn't know.
Like as someone who went on them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad that that's how Boy Scouts are, because great. So finally, at the campsite, the police found the audio diaries that Danny made in reference to all of these murders. So I'm not quite sure what those specifics were on those audios, but
it was it was this podcast.
Yeah. Totally.
It was the beta version.
Yeah. So finally in November was he charged with the murders. Like they were able to obviously arrest him for the Winn-Dixie drama in September, but they finally were able to pin him for the murders in November. Okay, so here's where it's about to get pretty cray-cray. And I don't know if this is just because I want to be a lawyer.
It begins to get...
Yeah, okay. But his trial and his motives. So basically, finally 4 years after the arrest, the trial ensued.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, fair and speedy my ass. So...
I mean, this is modern America.
Trial was conducted by the state attorney, and his motives were... fame, and he, like I said, wanted to be a superstar like Ted Bundy. That is a direct quote. Like, he literally was like, Ted Bundy is a superstar and I want to be like him.
Yeah, well, Zac Efron would never play him, so fuck you.
So in 1994, before the trial was in full swing, Danny pled guilty to all charges, and then I put in parentheses, probably wants street cred.
Exactly.
Which is terrible, but yeah. So, during the trial, Court TV held an interview with Danny's mother outside of the house, and literally in that interview, you can hear the dad, like, yelling shit in the background.
Like,
just being crazy still. Yeah. I did not watch, but that's probably very interesting.
I will not watch.
So, finally, on April 24th, 1994, Rawling was sentenced to death. So, he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and paraphilia. So,
psychopath with
pretty much
some extra stuff.
So, the jury unanimously found Danny guilty of first-degree murder on all 5 accounts in late March. So, a month later, he was sentenced to death. So he claims that he was driven by an alternate personality named Gemini.
Oh, fuck off.
Yeah.
Avery, aren't you a Gemini?
Yeah, as a Gemini, I find this quite offensive.
I'm gonna cancel him on Twitter.
Yeah, like, what the fuck? So, yeah. But anywho, so this is where it gets really crazy. So after his arrest and all of this sentencing and stuff, the police in Louisiana call up the Florida police, and they were like, hey, we actually have an unsolved triple homicide here in Shreveport.
Oh, fuck, I forgot.
And they were like, yeah, this was November 4th, 1989. And so because of the similarities in those murders in Shreveport and the Gainesville ones, the investigators sought out the DNA of the prisoners from Shreveport who were incarcerated. So Danny's DNA was similar enough from the Gainesville murder scene to the Shreveport murder scene that they were able to charge him. So
yeah, Dina's great. Dina does things, and in this case, I'm glad they connected it because.
And it was way after the fact too.
Yeah, like, and a lot of times, like, the different jurisdictions, there's like that pride thing. They don't want to help each other, especially if it's different states. So get them on all counts. Get this bitch.
I'm glad. Yeah, exactly. I'm glad that in this situation they were like, honestly, like, let's work together to put this bad boy away. So basically, the similarities. There were further similarities besides the DNA. Basically, like, the family was attacked while they were getting ready for dinner at their own house.
Oh.
Which is so sad. The victims were 55-year-old William Grissom, 24-year-old daughter Julie, and 8-year-old grandson Sean. Which is just... my heart breaks. My heart breaks. It's literally broken, and I'm sorry. Like, this is... so terrible. Like, but basically the similarity was that after the death, Julie, the 24-year-old, she was mutilated, cleaned, and posed, just like the other girls. So, I mean, at least, okay, obviously that's terrible, but at least they were able to connect those dots.
They're horrible dots, but...
They're terrible dots, but,
Yeah.
you know, at least they were, I guess, there as almost like breadcrumbs of evidence.
Yeah. And I'm glad that they have kind of a psychological... Someone in the, you know, task force has psychological, you know, connection
Right.
there, so...
Right, and, like, good for them for, like, reaching out, as you said, like, at the jurisdiction.
Mhm.
But, anywho, so... basically, before he was executed for the Gainesville murders and for these, he confessed to the additional ones in Shreveport, and he, I guess, had a spiritual advisor,
Well, they always do.
and he, like, apologized and confessed to his spiritual advisor and wrote a handwritten apology to Florida police.
But what about the people you killed?
I'm sorry, I do not accept apology.
Control Alt Delete.
All right, so pretty much everybody else was on the same page too. They were like, yeah, fuck that. Okay, see ya. Bye. Time to kill you. Like, he killed everybody else. Okay, so do you want to know what his last meal was, Josephine?
I don't know. I hope it was like just a bucket of battery acid.
Yum.
I know.
The
A
battery
vinaigrette.
special. Okay, so he had a lobster tail with drawn butter, butterfly shrimp with cocktail sauce, a baked potato with sour cream and butter, strawberry cheesecake, and sweet tea.
I mean, I don't want to say what's about to come out of my mouth, but I like kind of love it.
I mean, if you're gonna have like a meal on death row, you might as well just go all out.
Do you know what like one item of your like meal would be if you were in this case or in this situation?
Honestly, I don't know. Right now, the California roll sounds pretty good.
Oh, that's... Yeah, but, like, you know that they're going to leave the sushi at room temperature before they give it to you.
Okay, what about you?
I don't know. I feel like just a good pizza. Like, I feel like that, like, after eating,
You have
like,
to
crappy...
specify, though, because I feel like they would actually
Okay.
give you, like, this, like a frozen one.
Okay, well, if I had to, I would probably do this one pizza from this, like, Texas local-ish chain.
Zalat.
Zalat.
Is it?
I'm
yes!
getting it. It's so good. I would get, it's like a teriyaki base with like jalapenos and like chicken and like, or does it have chicken? I don't know.
Yes,
it's
it
like
does, and it's so good. All
It's
right.
so good. Okay. Anyway, moving on.
Okay, I'm so close to being done. Just hang in there, guys.
I know.
All right.
I'm literally on Zalat's
Like,
website right now. I'm gonna order it.
This is a loose tooth. Let's just rip it off and let's go. All right, so this is some creepy, weird details about his
back to this.
execution. So go away if you don't want to hear it. Love you
No, stay.
forever. Still would love for you to stay. But anywho, basically, before he was executed, he sang hymns, like religious hymns, and he didn't ask for forgiveness or anything. And basically,
So he thinks he's God.
a total of 47 witnesses came to like watch him get executed, which is double the capacity of the viewing room. So they were all like packed in there
Corona.
by sardines. Like they were like, all right, like I admit one, I want tickets to go watch this. Most of them obviously were family members of, you know, the victims,
Yeah.
which I totally understand. So he
Very
didn't make
gallows.
any-
1400s gallows vibes, but like in this case, I'm living for it.
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously he didn't make any statement before, but he sang weird, creepy song. He was pronounced dead at 6:13 p.m. So, moving
Good.
forward, where does that leave us now? I meant to tell y'all before, Joe, maybe you can edit this in, but mine is
We'll
also
leave it in. We're leaving it
inspired-
in.
My story is also inspired by a very well-known movie.
Wow. I don't know what that
which is-
noise was.
Okay, well, the movie is Scream. I'm
Yeah.
sure y'all have heard it. Very famous. So basically, it inspired many films and books. This story, it inspired Scream, a movie called Gainesville Ripper, real original. Additionally, somebody named Sandra London actually worked with Danny to make The Making of a Serial Killer, the true story of the Gainesville murders in the killer's own words.
Ew, I don't want to read those.
Yeah, and what gets even worse is that Sandra London and Danny actually decided to get together and get engaged.
Oh, fuck. Why does this always happen? He
so,
literally is...
Yes, like, you go in there to go and, like, interview this, like, crazy-ass killer, and then you leave and you're smitten. And it's like, bro.
I mean, honestly, if he was in a room with Ted Bundy... they'd be fucking. He loves Ted Bundy way too much.
I mean, obviously, like, they're master manipulators and stuff, but come on, girl. You know that that's what you're going in there
well,
to
they're
interview.
psychopaths. Like, that's just
exactly,
what they do.
And they're going to manipulate you, but it's like, do you not, like, have your, like, prep yourself in the car and be like,
but
all right,
also,
this guy is totally going to come on to me. Yeah, he killed people, and he's going to try to manipulate me, so let's not do that type of thing. And then she gets in and she's like, okay, never mind. He's pretty cute.
Yeah, like, I kind of like him. He's, like, a really nice. And, like, whenever I go to the jail to, like, visit him, the friends, like, look at her weird. She's like, yeah, like, he's so nice. And then, I mean, he, like, killed 8 people.
Okay,
Shot his dad.
I'm almost done. So.
I'm done now.
He killed many others. So, while he was on death row, he wrote songs, poems, and drew pictures that became regarded as murderphilia.
Murder, you feel ya.
Which I don't really know exactly what that entails, but I'm assuming it's just like graphic murder pictures.
Well, like, it probably just, like, because philia is, like obsession. So it's just, like, his obsession of murder in photo form.
So, on the bright side, let's talk about the victims that we love so much and care for so much. And,
let's do it.
You know, basically... Unfortunately, because they were so young, I mean, they had their whole lives ahead of them, and, you know, they came to college to do all of this other stuff, and they're somebody's daughter, somebody's son, their best friend, you know, it's
and in the future,
so
there'll be someone's, like, aunt or, like, uncle or whatever that
they never got to meet.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's
and that's so terrible, but at least for... right now, there's a memorial for all of the 5 students, at least from the Gainesville murders, that's on 34th Street. And it was first painted in 1990, right after, but it's been tweaked and maintained and kept up with since then. So we're going to be posting pictures of all of this on our Instagram.
Yes.
We have a picture of the victims, the murderer, his, like, hobo tent. And
I mean, no, honestly, like, that fucking tent is just like, oh my god, it's very much gross. Like, of course he was living there. Can't imagine how bad he smelled.
This memorial wall is honestly so beautiful, and I'm so happy that it's there. And, like, all of this stuff, like, honestly really matters because their story needs to live on, and it's unfortunate that, like, we're telling this story about Danny instead of their stories. But I mean, in a sense, this is their story, and, you know, there's so much more beyond that, and I want to be able to give them justice.
Exactly.
But me telling their story along with Danny's would be giving them a disservice because they're not in the same category.
Yeah, I would say they're not. I mean, not to, like, say that, like, you know, childhood abuse doesn't shape you, but there's so many people that go through childhood abuse and are able to not kill a bunch of
live
people,
normal lives,
and
maybe
cut
like
their
channel
fucking nipples off. Like,
yeah, like maybe like channel those issues into something positive and do, like, I don't know, maybe yoga or something.
Yeah. Or even if you're, like, chronically depressed and, like, really going through a horrible time, you're not about to go out and kill someone. Like, it takes that psychopath, it takes that antisocial personality disorder to really take it up a notch. in a bad way.
Right.
So,
well, on that note, I think I'm about to go have some more wine, but
yeah,
Joe,
I was trying to, while you were finishing up your story, I was trying to find like a fun, like happy, like like short news story to tell. But I've had a lot of wine.
And I think we're good on time.
Yeah, and that's something that I'd like to do in the future, just to end on a good note. Well, Avery, I hope you have a good rest of your night, and I will probably pass out or stare at the wall for 5 minutes to regain my consciousness. So with that, thank you guys for joining, and
we hope to see y'all next week. Please like and subscribe. And
yes, so our first episode is going to be on YouTube, as Avery was alluding to. We are going to be live on Spotify and iTunes later this week, and every Tuesday, so starting next Tuesday, everything will be live on the same day. So just so you'll know, we also have an Instagram. It's at So Criminal Pod on Instagram. Obviously, I said it. Instagram.
So criminal. So
Criminal Pod, POD, and on Twitter at So Criminal Pod also, and we're still kind of building everything out. We're still kind of like, getting everything ready. So stay tuned.
All right, love you guys. Peace out.
Bye.